this first study as we only have two for today, so I'll take the first one. Natalie, you can. Second one is yours. This first one is about the impact of future relational self on employee-supervisor relationship. And so there's this thing called future work self. And so for incoming employees, so you get a job and you're hired at this new organization. A lot of times employees envision kind of what their future work self is going to look like when they go into this new job. And it's just this conceptual model, this future work self, for this hoped for ideal that this person's going to be and try to actualize. And a lot of past studies have focused on this idea of future work self and how it impacts organizational outcomes, and finding a lot of positive outcomes related to people who are able to visualize who they want to become at work and then actually work towards it. Gives them motivation, things like that. However, not a lot of research has been done on this idea of future relational self, and this is actually the kind of pilot study talking about future relational self, which is this encapsulates this idea of this relational dimension of one's future work self, specifically on like how the incoming employee is going to interact with their supervisor, what that relationship is going to look like. So it's looking at the relational side. And so this study is kind of focused around this future relational self and how it impacts these leader-member exchange once they enter the workforce. So the first question that they asked in the study was, is having a clear understanding of one's future relational self and perceiving it to be easily attainable positively related to leader-member exchange quality? And to make this a little easier understood, I put it as, does having a clear understanding of one's future relational self, so salience, clear understanding, perceiving it to be easily attainable, how easy is it to get to? Does it lead to the level of quality of a relationship with the supervisor? So for example, if I before I start a job, I envision that I have this really high quality relationship with my supervisor, does that actually impact the high quality relationship that we might have once I start the job? Second question is, does the leader-member exchange quality mediate the relationship between future relational self, which is both salience, and attribution of control, which is the how easily attainable it is, and the adjustment process, which is broken down into role clarity and social adjustment. So in other words, does the quality of the relationship with the supervisor determine the ability of an employee's future relational self to affect their social adjustment and role clarity in the workplace? And then the methods that were used to conduct this study were they utilized samples of recently hired but not yet working participants. Data were collected via survey in 3 waves, each wave a month apart. The first wave was, I believe, right before the newcomers had entered the workforce. And then the second wave was conducted 4 weeks after they'd started. And then the third wave was conducted 4 weeks after they started that, or had the second survey, so 8 weeks after they started. And 215 participants in total completed the survey, all 3 of them. And then these previously validated 5-point scales were used to determine both future relational self salience and attribution of control, leader-member exchange quality, and this newcomer's adjustment, which is focused on role clarity and social adjustment. And what was found here is, first, the authors found a positive relationship between the attribution of control of future relational self and leader-member exchange quality, but no such relationship was found between salience and the quality. And to break this down, so in other words, employees that believe their future relational self is easily attainable, so if they envision a high quality relationship with the supervisor, this will translate into higher quality employee supervisor interactions. However, the clarity of this future relational self in their minds does not necessarily impact these results. And so this suggests that an employee's belief of how attainable their future relational self is once they start work is the primary variable shaping the actual quality of this employee supervisor exchange. Additionally, the authors found that leader-member exchange quality does mediate the effect of future relational self's attribution of control on social adjustment and role clarity, which means that having a high quality relationship with the supervisor, for example, is an underlying factor that helps an employee with a positive and mentally attainable future relational self adjust better to the organization through social adjustment and greater role clarity. And so in short, just to kind of summarize these results is employees who envision a positive relationship with their future supervisor and see this goal as attainable will actualize this imagined future, creating a high quality relationship with their supervisor. And this relationship that they create is an important underlying mechanism that explains how their imagined future affects their adjustment to the organization. And the authors noted a number of practical key takeaways, one being that dedicating time towards the future relational self in trainings and in onboarding processes for these new employees may be very beneficial because it can actually lead to different outcomes and better outcomes when employees have these interactions. And then they also actually suggest that for recently hired employees to reflect on what they want their relationship with their supervisor to look like, because doing so can impact their actual relationship with their supervisor as they begin their job. Yep, that's a lot. Very, I feel like it's very technically worded, so it took me a while to like really understand what they were getting at. But I think it's really interesting to think that your kind of imagined future self can impact how you actually interact with people.
Yeah, it's wordy at first. I thank you for kind of breaking it down like in other words.
Yep.
But it's also interesting, and I comprehending it more now. I can see that. I'm not shocked, but it's nice to point this out. Like as you said, this is kind of a pilot study, right? But identifying that there is no relationship between the future relational self. So like, oh, I'm going to grow in this company. I see myself in this company like long term. And I see my role. I have that clarity, but yet that has no relationship with the quality with your supervisor, with the leader or whatnot, right? That's what this is?
No, well, so it's actually like it's the other way around. So the quality of the relationship mediates the effect of this future relational self and how well they actually adjust the organization. So if you have a high quality relationship with the supervisor, my understanding is that your future relational self's idea of that kind of will be validated, and because of that, you're going to be able to adjust to the organization better through role clarity and social adjustment.
Okay. But then the other way around, like the first bullet, the first result, however, no such relationship was found between future relational self salience and
the leader member exchange. Yeah.
Quality.
Yeah. And so that's just breaking down kind of, so they break down future relational self into two major aspects, one being salience, like how clear are you about this idea? And then how attainable is it, which is the attribution of control. And so there wasn't a relationship between the salience and actual result of a leader member exchange quality. Okay. Yeah. No, it's confusing, very wordy.
Yeah, but I'm trying to understand that a little bit. So if it's clear, if it's salient that my future relational self is salient, that means there's no relationship between my awareness of that and how my relationship is with my supervisor.
Yeah, so the clarity, there's no evidence to conclude that clarity has an impact in this relationship at all. So, I guess it means that you could have a unclear idea, and it's not necessarily a clear idea of your future relational self, and it might still, if it's positive, it might still beneficially impact the quality of the relationship.
Yeah, I can kind of go. Just saying that there's no relationship doesn't mean it's negative or positive. It's just they didn't find anything. Yeah, but right. Because you could have that future, the salience, you could have that. This is a lot to say at once, but yet have a negative sort of rapport with your leader.
Sure. Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't make a, yeah, it doesn't really impact this. So you could have um, yeah, it would, it more so depends on how attainable is it. Like if you have a positive, and a lot of studies are focused around the positive element of this future self, but it does work in negative ways as well. If you're like going to be fearful of this new supervisor or whatever, it might, and you believe that that's going to actually happen, then it probably will. But yeah, the clarity doesn't make a doesn't seem to make a difference, at least at this point.
I think this also relates to like the psychological needs, and I'm thinking of like growth and stimulation, and like I feel like how I frame conflict, I kind of use those two a lot, and like just to try to, you know, if we can kind of feed those needs a little bit more, we're going to choose more of the constructive, like creative pathway that conflict leads to. And like this kind of aligns with that in the sense of let's in like in the onboarding processes, as this key takeaway states, and in trainings and stuff, like let's you know, provide the not just like the tools, but the idea and the possibility of growth and stimulation with your role or within this company, within this organization. And not only will that lead to better relationships with your supervisor and stuff, but I think it also will lead to more constructive conflict, like methods of working through constructive conflict, if you are feeling, if those needs of growth and stimulation are being met like consistently in your workplace.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great great takeaway. That's definitely related to this. And I think that it's also it seems like it's also kind of related. This makes me think a little bit of like psychological safety. If you're like this, I guess if you have a positive future relational self of interacting well with the supervisor and forming a strong relationship, that's going to create more that's kind of what that second point shows to me, is, you know, you're going to create more psychological safety. You're going to be more I guess better embedded in the organization. And so
yeah. It's very ironic. I was just speaking to like a colleague / friend yesterday about her role in her workplace. She's in HR and doesn't necessarily been there for years. Is dedicated to the company. Like has a great rapport with her supervisor, the leadership, and sees herself work like there is that future relational self there, like not only the salience but the attainability, but doesn't like her role in HR and wants to figure out where else she can fit into the company. And I think that this kind of aligns with that as well. And you know, just about how, again, that growth and stimulation, the psychological safety, as you point out, can like, what's the word, where like just where you like keep your employees more, like that longevity of an employee in your organization, which I feel like most companies want that, because onboarding, it's a lot of extra time, money, energy that goes into onboarding new employees. And you know, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of takeaways that actually can come from this study. This is great.
I was going to say, I wonder too what that means in terms of preventing conflict in the workplace too. Like how this, you know, if you're happier and you have a better relationship and you feel safer and you have your needs met, you know, you're less likely to be involved in conflict too. So yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot to be, you know, implied from this.
Yeah.
Definitely. It'd be interesting to see how this would work in like within the organization, if you had a future, like either future work self, future relational self, but probably be future work self, but looking at how, so you're already at an organization and you have somebody that wants to be promoted. Like, I feel like a cause of conflict a lot of times is you have an employee in an organization, they want to be promoted, they feel like they deserve it. And then for some reason, they don't get that promotion. Somebody else maybe under them, or someone that, you know, maybe hasn't been there as long, gets this promotion, and there's a lack of trust. And I wonder how this kind of future, I would imagine this like future self, if you picture yourself in this new role, like how that would impact the level of conflict if once these exchanges occur. Because I feel like it would, I imagine that it would impact, that they'd be related, but I think it'd be interesting to look at a little more deeply.
Yeah, like it would somehow diminish your future work self a bit, right? I mean, if like, yeah, that's.
Yeah, well, yeah, be attacking that ideal that you have. Yeah.